Ladies and gentlemen, the ANC loves to say that it's a great partner of the communists in Russia. Russia helped the Russians, the commies. They helped them fight the liberation struggle. They were trained by the commies. But in a recent article written, turns out the commies didn't like the ANC very much. What do you think, Ramon?
So one of the greatest authors in a political sense in South Africa is a guy called R.W. Johnson. He's been around for over 50 years. He writes great books. And I agree with him on most things. Not on everything, but if you want to understand South Africa, you read R.W. Johnson. And in his latest piece, published on the 9th of January of this year, it's called The Road Not Taken. And something extraordinary happened that we were completely unaware of. In that the National Party, the Nats, the architects of apartheid, were actually speaking to the KGB in the 80s about the future of South Africa and what the Nats should do for the future of South Africa. And according to Johnson, he was actually very close to those particular conversations. The KGB said that the ANC at no point should be given any power whatsoever, and the Nats needed to impose a new dispensation in the country without the ANC. No negotiations, no nothing, because as the KGB said, the Afrikaners do not understand the Africans. And ouch. Imagine what could have been. But unfortunately not, because the Nats said, well, we speak to Thabo Mbeki, he seems like a reasonable chap, and therefore the Nats disregarded the KGB, and now we're in the shithole because of that decision.
Yeah, so the actual phrase is used in the book itself is that the Nats don't know or understand the back populace of South Africa. The intelligence failure assumed in good faith that the ANC were worthy participations in negotiation. The article says that mistake around the intelligence of the ANC and the failure to assume that these people actually had a brain cell is really what's caused us the mistake in South Africa. And I suppose that is true. A lot of people were blindsided by Nelson Mandela as being the messiah figure of South Africa. And now we are finding that all of the people that were underneath the brilliance of Mandela are not so brilliant. In fact, they're rather stupid. Apparently, the KGB called this. They were like, hey, guys, you need to be careful of Mandela. Not because of Mandela and the ANC. They thought Mandela was fine. But what they did think is that the party behind Mandela were dumb. Future-wise, that's not a good move. Maybe the KGB knew something, maybe they didn't, huh? But I suppose for me personally, the takeaway from the story is that the commies didn't really much like the commies, even though the modern commies and the ANC still want to be like, hey, the Russians were our friends, huh?
Yeah, so to give this a bit of context, I mean, the ANC was funded by the Soviet Union since the 60s, I believe. Millions and millions of dollars were sent through to the ANC. And after the ANC was banned in the 1960s, the Soviet Union still funded them, put up camps in Zambia and all sorts of things, funded MK. If the Soviet Union didn't exist, the ANC would have died after the banning in 1961. So the Soviet Union and the KGB knew the ANC intimately because they basically ensured its survival and gave it tactics and gave it training and gave it weapons. By the time the 80s roll around, the KGB knew that this was a lost cause. MK were useless, they bombed themselves more than actual infrastructure in South Africa, and they knew deep down in their own hearts, not that commies have hearts, that the ANC only cared about itself. And they warned the Nats, and the Nats refused to listen. That is the real story that you should understand here. The Nats refused to listen to their mortal enemy, but the mortal enemy was completely correct about the ANC. So Baron, if there wasn't this CODESA and negotiated settlement and all this nonsense that led us to this path right here, what do you think would have happened to South Africa if the Nats did impose some form of new dispensation? What would you have hoped to happen?
I reckon the IFP probably would have taken over at some point in time. But then I suppose the argument could have been that they would have gone from a liberal democracy to a near-liberal democracy like the US, and then we may have all the globalist bullcrap that we're having to deal with now. So I don't know. It's difficult to determine the road less traveled. But, with that being said, for me, what's interesting is that a lot of the ANC guys are all like, we owe Russia a debt because they funded us. But what they don't really seem to stop and think about sometimes is the Russians didn't fund the ANC guys because they were really keen on the ANC. They funded the ANC guys because they just didn't want the West getting in. And this is what they failed to understand, is that at the time, this was very much a Western American empire versus a Russian empire in terms of the Soviets. They would fund anybody who just wasn't on the other team's side. So they funded the ANC not because they liked the ANC, but they just didn't want the ANC to be joining with the Americans. So as a result, they kind of funded them, but they knew full well that the future with an ANC wasn't really a bright one, which is why obviously they tried to warn everybody. But this also becomes the problem, where my enemy comes to me going, hey, I know we're enemies, hey, but those guys, like, hey, be careful. And I can kind of understand where the Nats maybe were coming from. They were maybe like, hey, are these guys telling us this because they don't want us to do something? Or is it like double jeopardy here? Is it like, the old COVID spy against spy? Like, that's what the environment at the time looked like. With that being said, And we've covered this in previous videos. I still maintain to today that the reason they picked the ANC as their preferred partners was because the ANC were dumb. And being dumb, they felt that they could give them a little few bribes back here and there. It could allow them to get some state resources somewhere that an efficient government probably wouldn't have passed. So it probably allowed a degree of corporatism and corporatism capture of the country itself to take root, because the next government wasn't exactly very bright and couldn't really see through that. So it's possible that the reason they picked those guys in the first place were because they were dumb.
That's all fair and well, but imagine the Nats actually had a bit of testicular fortitude and sort of implemented a new dispensation, right? Think about it. You are a party who has controlled a country for close to 40 years. You really do care about one certain part of that country in terms of race and demographics. The best way not to screw that up is not to have a unitary state, not to have a centralized state like we have at the moment. You would have a federalized, deeply decentralized state. That's how the folk will carry on. But they didn't do that. What they did was CODESA settlements, constitution, white nationalists give the party to black nationalists. And the black nationalists are a lot more stupid and greedy than the white ones, and therefore the whole country's screwed. And that should have seen this coming. But unfortunately, Thabo Mbeki and Nelson Mandela managed to sway them to assume that these people were reasonable people. The KGB knew, man. The KGB knew.
Yeah, and before anybody starts to criticize us and go, white supremacists who are pushing for the return of apartheid. Okay, that's not what we're saying at all. What we are saying is that here you have the ANC. They always like to push up their communist credentials. Look at the commies. They loved us so much. Behind the closed doors, what you're realizing is that the commies didn't even like the ANC. No one liked the ANC. It's arguable that maybe the ANC just got in because they were the stupidest of the lot and would just cave into any demands. They were so greedy, they were just going to extract till the end of time. And as long as you gave them stuff to extract, then anything else went.
We have created a brand new insurance brokerage called, funny enough, Morning Shot Insurance Brokers. So if you're interested in saving money on insurance, number one, but most importantly, having a Zoom with me and my wonderful face, why not send me your insurance schedule to ramon@morningshot.co.za? Let's chat. Maybe we can help each other save money and deliver superior service, because that's what we're all about here at Morning Shot. But fundamentally, if you do like the Nats, you must question their ability to negotiate. They lost to the ANC, after all. And most importantly, their ability to strategically understand the future of South Africa. They failed miserably in both ways, and we're all paying the price for it. Which begs the question, like, how smart actually were they? Anyway, thanks for watching. Let us know down in the comments down below. Should you pay attention to the KGB or FSB, whatever it's called now? Thanks for watching, everyone.